It's 1970 and Scammell Lorries dominate British heavy haulage. From oil rigs to tank transporters, they build trucks nobody else can match. Fast forward to 1988 and the Watford factory closes forever. The Scammell name disappears. What happened? The 1970s happened, a decade of brilliant engineering mixed with corporate chaos. In 1972, Leyland shut down Thornycroft and moved everything to Scammell. Suddenly they're building dump trucks, military vehicles and mainstream trucks. This is the story of 10 Scammell lorries from the 1970s that made history. Number 10, Trunker 3. The Trunker 3 was a 3-axle tractor with twin steering axles. It launched in 1970 with an 11-foot 6-inch wheelbase, longer than the previous Trunker 2. This helped with trailer compatibility and made servicing easier. The truck was rated for 36 tons gross weight. It used a 6x2 configuration, 2 steering axles at the front, 1 driven axle at the back. The middle axle could lift when you didn't need it. Scammell redesigned the chassis frame, deeper side members, 9.5 inches instead of 8.5 inches. This meant no more box reinforcements. Everything became accessible. Brake pipes, control valves, all the fiddly bits mechanics hated reaching. The air brake system was completely new. Scammell grouped all control valves together on the frame side beneath the cab. This reduced the amount of piping needed. The system included a condenser with automatic draining. Relay valves eliminated delay in the brake circuits. Spring brake chambers applied the front and driving axle brakes. The Trunker 3 came with Leyland or Rolls-Royce engines. With Leyland, it weighed 5 tons, 1,600 weight unladen. With Rolls-Royce, 6 tons 100 weight. It could handle an 11-ton load on the 5th wheel. Number 9, Handyman MK2 and MK3. The Handyman was Scammell's lightweight 4x2 tractor. It came out in the 1950s, but the Mark II and Mark III versions in the 1970s got the Michelotti glass fibre cab. That distinctive look, vertical lines. Some called it the cheese grater cab. The Handyman competed in standard haulage. This was new territory for Scammell. They were known for heavy specialist work, not regular trucking, but Leyland wanted them to fight back against foreign trucks flooding Britain. Early versions had Scammell's own gate change gearbox. Later versions used AEC and David Brown gearboxes. Engine choices were Leyland 680, Gardner 150 or Rolls-Royce 220. The Handyman was never a huge seller, but it kept Scammell alive during tough times. It proved they could build everyday trucks, not just the extreme jobs. Operators who bought Handymans were loyal. The build quality was there, the reliability was there, but the price was high, too high for most fleets. Number 8, Nubian 6x6. The Nubian wasn't originally a Scammell. It came from Thornycroft. When Leyland closed Thornycroft in 1972, the Nubian 6x6 dump truck moved to Watford. Scammell took over production, and they improved it. The Nubian was a heavy dump truck, 6x4 configuration, built for quarries and construction sites, all 3 axles driven. This gave incredible off-road ability. Scammell also inherited the lighter LD 55 6x4 dump truck from Thornycroft. Both models fill gaps in Scammell's product lineup. Before 1972, Scammell focused on heavy haulage tractors. Now they had construction vehicles too. The military loved the Nubian. They regularly adapted it for army use, troop transport, equipment carrier, recovery vehicle. The 6x6 drivetrain made it perfect for rough terrain. British forces used Nubians in training exercises across Europe. The trucks proved reliable in conditions that destroyed civilian vehicles. Scammell didn't just copy Thornycroft's design, they developed it. New cab options, better suspensions, more powerful engines. By the late 1970s, the Nubian was as much Scammell as Thornycroft. The Nubian became more reliable, more capable, more Scammell. Number 7. Airfield crash tenders. Scammell built a new line of Airfield crash tenders in the 1970s. These were 4x4 and 6x6 rear-engine vehicles. Engine powers up to 540 horsepower. One job: race to aircraft crashes, deploy foam, save lives. The challenge was the foam system. It needed constant speed, but the truck also needed to drive. Scammell solved this with high-power PTO systems. The PTO operated the foam at constant speed while the truck moved. These tenders used automatic transmissions. Essential. When you're racing toward burning aircraft, you need both hands on the wheel. No time for gear changes. The RAF used them. So did civilian airports. They were fast, reliable, powerful. When seconds mattered, Scammell crash tenders delivered. These trucks rarely get mentioned in Scammell history, but they saved lives, hundreds of lives. That matters more than any sales numbers. Number 6, Samson. The Samson was the heavy haulage version of the Crusader. Take a Crusader 6x4, add another axle, make it 8x4. That's the Samson. 4 axles, all driven. Maximum traction for the heaviest loads. The Samson sold in limited numbers. Specialist market. Not many operators needed this much truck, but when you did, nothing else worked. The truck was designed for loads that exceeded what a 3-axle tractor could safely handle. It kept the Crusader's power, up to 280 horsepower from Rolls-Royce. The Samson proved Scammell's engineering philosophy. The truck competed in a market dominated by custom-built heavy haulers. Heavy haulage operators who bought Samsons kept them for decades. Number 5, double-drive Rootman 8x4. The double-drive Rootman 8x4 changed construction work. Scammell launched it at the 1968 Earl's Court Show, but the 1970s was when it proved itself. The truck used the same rear bogie as the Crusader 6x4, bulletproof. The same engineering that worked for line haul worked for tipping. The Rootman could carry 24 tons, both rear axles driven. Incredible traction on building sites, quarries, anywhere muddy. When other tippers got stuck, the Rootman kept moving. The double drive system meant power went to 4 wheels instead of 2. It had the Michelotti glass fibre cap, that cheese grater look. Drivers loved it or hated it. Engine options included Leyland 680, Gardner 150 and Rolls-Royce 220. Construction companies loved the Rootman. The double drive system never quit. The 8x4 configuration spread the weight perfectly. Less ground pressure meant less rutting. Number 4, Contractor. The Contractor was the heavy haulage legend. It launched in 1964, but it dominated the 1970s. Cummins 335 horsepower engine, Fuller semi-automatic gearbox, light clutch, American technology in a British truck. You could choose your rear bogie, Leyland 24 ton, Scammell 30 ton, or Scammell 40 ton. For really heavy work, you wanted the 40 ton bogie. It could handle gross train weights over 240 tons. The 40 ton bogie became standard on all future Scammell heavy haulers. The Contractor had a coach-built cab, hand-built, expensive, but tough. This truck moved things nobody else could. Power station transformers, bridge sections, steam locomotives from scrapyards, industrial boilers, oil refinery components, anything oversized or overweight. The British Army used Contractors for tank transport. Australian Army used them in Vietnam. This was the truck that built Scammell's reputation. When the impossible job came up, you called a contractor operator. Need to move a 200-ton transformer through narrow village streets. Contractor. Need to haul a bridge section up a mountain road. Contractor. The truck became synonymous with can-do attitude. Number 3, Contractor MK2. The Contractor Mark II took heavy haulage to the next level. Late 1970s launch, 18-litre Cummins KT450 engine, 425 horsepower, Allison automatic gearbox, more power than any previous Scammell. This was American muscle in a British heavy hauler. The Mark II handled the heaviest loads in British heavy haulage, but with less driver effort. The automatic gearbox meant no clutch work, no gear grinding, point and go. On long overnight moves, this made a massive difference. Drivers arrived fresher. Less fatigue meant safer operations. Heavy haulage operators loved it. The power, the reliability, the ease of use. Number 2, Crusader 4x2. The Crusader 4x2 proved Scammell could build mainstream trucks. It launched in 1969 at the Scottish Motor Show, but the 1970s made it a star. Rolls-Royce Eagle diesel engine, 220 or 280 horsepower. Most British operators thought this was insane, too much power, too expensive. But Walter Batstone from British Road Services believed in it. He pushed for the 4x2 version. He was right. The original 6x4 Crusader had launched at the 1968 Earl's Court show with a Detroit diesel 8V7 1N 2-stroke engine, 273 horsepower, Fuller 15-speed gearbox, Albion hub reduction tandem axles. Conservative operators hated it. Too much power for British roads, they said. But Scammell saw the future. British weight limits were increasing. Motorways were expanding. Drivers wanted speed. The old 150 to 220 horsepower engines couldn't keep up. The 4x2 Crusader changed the game. It was lighter than the 6x4, better fuel economy, lower purchase price, but still had that Rolls-Royce power. The motor panel's cab came in day or sleeper configuration. Proper sleeper, not a bunk behind the seats. A real cab where drivers could rest properly. The Rolls-Royce engine was bulletproof. The Crusader changed everything. It proved specialist manufacturers could compete with volume producers, if the product was good enough. Scammell wasn't just a heavy haulage company anymore. They were a serious player in mainstream trucking. Number 1, Commander. The Commander was the ultimate Scammell, the pinnacle, the legend. Development started in the late 1970s. The British Army needed a tank transporter for Challenger tanks, something to replace Thornycroft Antars, something fast. Scammell built a monster, 6x4 configuration, Rolls-Royce CV12TCE engine, 26.7 litres, 48 valves, dual turbocharged intercooled, 625 horsepower, semi-automatic gearbox, Scammell 40-ton rear bogie. The specs were insane. Gross train weight over 100 tons. But here's the crazy part. It had to accelerate and brake like a 32-ton truck. This was for Cold War Germany. If the Soviets attacked, these had to move Challenger tanks fast. This truck could transport a Challenger tank onto a semi-trailer using a hydraulic 20-ton winch, then accelerate like a normal truck, then brake like a normal truck. When people talk about British engineering at its peak, this is what they mean. The Commander wasn't just a truck, it was a statement. Britain could still build the best when it mattered. The 1970s gave us the greatest Scammell lorries ever built. The Commander showed what British engineering could achieve. The Contractor Mark II dominated heavy haulage. The Crusader proved Scammell could compete anywhere. But the decade also showed Scammell's fatal weakness. Too specialised, too expensive, too dependent on small volume production. When DAF bought Leyland in 1987, they closed Watford in 1988. The Scammell name disappeared. Production moved to Leyland for a few models, but the soul was gone. Today, surviving Scammells are treasured. The Crusaders, the Contractors, the Commanders. These trucks were overbuilt, over-engineered, absolutely unstoppable. They represented something important. Pride in craftsmanship, refusal to compromise, building the best, not the cheapest. That's the story of 10 Scammell lorries from the 1970s that made history.